Welcome to Texas Truck Channel, episode 40. Brian,
Big 4-0.
I'm Craig. It's time to get into this sucker. Brian, we've got some fun things to talk about, and those are going to be fun. But first, this podcast is brought to you by Manual Transmissions, helping you go slower to 0 to 60 and get less fuel mileage. But 3 pedals is always better than 2. What are we in?
We are in a, well, first of all, I'm Brian. And then second of all, we are in a Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro, which I've actually been very excited to get into this. We had this on review at an event more than a year ago, almost a year and a half ago. And we haven't had one on loan yet up until now. And we liked it on that review. And we had a Sequoia Platinum last summer on loan that we did not like, honestly, really at all. We just simply didn't like it. So I'm interested to see how this comes out here in the review.
Yes, and we're in our mobile studio because this is the actual studio
Yes.
tonight. We're doing the old car swap thing. The long-termer Gladiator, which is, let's just touch on that real quick.
Sure.
We have almost 7,500 miles on it now.
Oh my God. I was doing this math today, Craig. Last time I drove it, it had 6,200 miles on it. When I gave you the keys, I went, this guy's been to Houston. He's been commuting in it. He's there for like 2 weeks. I haven't driven it in a while, but yeah, we're going to have to sell this thing pretty quick. We're actually going to have to worry about mileage pretty soon at this point.
And the reason it's getting so many miles is because it's great. Because
it's awesome.
Because it's got good highway manners, despite it being we call it a tent.
Yeah, driving a tent.
And the mud tires. It's still it
works.
It doesn't wander like you would expect a solid axle vehicle to wander. It just doesn't do it. Or if it does, you get so used to it, you don't even notice it anymore. You get to a point where you just don't even notice it.
Right.
And then where I live, there's always a lot of dirt roads and options to like get off the pavement and
Endear.
And I just like to get off into not have to worry about it with the tires and the suspension and it just takes it. It doesn't matter. So, and by the way, I take most of the press cars on there as well too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, but this one actually is like happy to be there.
It's happy to be there and it's fine. And then that way, if you see anything exciting too or a little bit of mud, you're like, I'll just go hit the mud. So every time you and I swap this thing, it also has more mud than it had previously on it for some reason. So
yeah, I think if we weighed it on the scale, it'd be heavier from what's hiding in the frame rails.
Because I think what's happening is, and every time other people see it, like, oh, have you been off-roading? I go, no, it's just a Jeep. It just attracts me.
No, it's just what it does.
Yeah,
I was in the garage the whole time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
Look, I've realized, and when you were talking about this a minute ago, you're going through what I went through when I've had my first four-wheel drive truck, was that, well, I'm just going to go through that.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because why not?
Why not?
So that's what you're doing. It's not a press car. You're just in it. This is hours. And you're starting to just like on the daily. It's not an occasion. It's just a habit now.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. That is like why you have 4x4s and stuff.
Absolutely. So, but let's talk about the Sequoia TRD Pro, Brian. This is a certain color. They call it
Terra.
Terra.
Yep. So for those that don't know, the TRD Pros get a yearly special color.
Yes.
And that's what this year's color is. Terra looks like a terracotta. In fact, our Hawaiian shirts that Toyota gave us at the Tacoma reveal, first look, had terracotta all in it.
They did.
So that was the clue. We didn't know then. We know
now. But now we know, and you mentioned it, or maybe we've talked about this offline so many times. I can't remember if it was on the podcast or not.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this TRD Pro. Yes, we had the Platinum previously, but let's just talk about the ride and drive. I haven't been able to drive it yet. You have.
Yeah, I've had it all week.
You haven't really taken it off-road, which is, even though this is the off-road model.
No, I went down the Gasline Hill Road twice.
Okay, good.
In two-wheel drive traction off. And right, by the way, the tail end of this route, we have never put this on camera because it's not really a good filming spot, but it's about 45, 50 feet of just water. And it just doesn't.
We've had a lot of rain.
We've had a lot of rain. It just doesn't seem to care. And then climbing the hill itself in one-wheel drive, traction control still steps in, but it figured it out and made it up.
Okay.
Now, there's a high center point that it does drag a little bit that I'm not totally surprised on. Not the nose, but the belly. So you got to take it at an angle. So I have done a little bit of off-roading, but I'm saving the hill test for YouTube.
Okay.
I'm not doing that, and I'll be honest. I'm worried about the nose without a spotter on this. I really want you to be there before I go up the hill on it. So that's just the reality of the bodywork of this thing.
But you called me early on when you had it, and you were very impressed how it just drove on the road.
Oh, as a road-going vehicle, this thing is awesome. Big fan of it. And look, we've talked about this before. If you've seen reviews, the Platinum we had last year was annoying. It had the air ride suspension with adaptable dampers, but only air ride in the rear, but not the hydraulic lift that the LX600 gets. It had 20-inch wheels, has a live axle. It didn't ride very well. It rode just like that rental van you take from the airport to the rental car building. It was terrible. Terrible. And my whole family, we took this thing to Grapevine, and And my wife and kids were all like, this thing rides weird. Henry got car sick, the whole thing. And the packaging in the rear still is debatable. You can't fold the seats down because it's live axle and blah, blah, blah. But then you got this low nose with the Platinum. You can't drive over a curb stop without it scraping. And on our hill test, we found out that a Volkswagen Jetta has a better approach angle than that thing did. And so it's actually not off-roadable. For sleet and snow on pavement, it's fine. But off-road, it really isn't ready for it. This one is. And the Fox suspension is so much better than the Air Ride. The body, and it's not just the off-road. Fox is like an off-road brand. It's the shock dampening for body motion control on pavement is great. It I'm not going to say it's as good, but it's in the tuning vein of the Ranger trimmer that we love so much. And I was thinking on the way over here, I'm really curious what your feedback is in your daily drive in your neighborhood. I'm not saying it's that. I'm not saying it's Ranger trimmer, but there's some aftertaste of that in the shock tuning, and you can tell. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some Fox people involved on both of those. So that's right.
Oh, well, we know there are because they're both Fox shocks, but
I mean teams like actual
very well, could be.
There's some similarities, and that's all praise. That's all good.
And Brian, we've had a similar Toyota product to this color and trim and shocks, and it rode okay. And I was just getting to start to get the feel of it, and because one of the things we know about both these Sequoias and the new Tundras, the passenger and driver seat, the front row,
awesome,
great space to be. If you're the passenger or the driver, ergo's good. It's comfortable. Right. It's plenty of room. Maybe not the best sight lines. It's kind of hard to see out of this vehicle.
This is not a whole lot different than that.
Especially with these mirrors. But my point is, we like it. I was just getting used to that, and we're looking forward to reviewing that Tundra TRD Pro.
It was impactful on one of us.
It was very impactful on me, especially the deer I hit.
So wait, hold on. You just grazed that over.
Just like I hit the deer, I just grazed over it.
Hang on, just so people that are listening know, that review will never make it to light because we were not allowed to film it because Craig.
Well, we let Toyota know. Like, we could do angles, and we're like, then we showed pictures, and they're like,
please don't. Please don't film it.
We'll just do it another time. So.
So when that gets back from the body shop, hopefully we get it again.
And so what happened is we hit a deer was hit at speed limit.
You weren't speeding.
Actually a little under. But the deer kamikazed right at the last minute, and I don't mean that in any insensitive way. I just jumped out last minute. And because of the tow mirror, I couldn't see it. It kind of blocked my view.
Craig mumbled that, but that's the tow mirror he's referring to.
And so the deer no longer there, and also neither was parts of the truck. So pulled over, picked up the bumper that was still on the road. Plugged the sensor back in so it wouldn't beep at me.
That fell out again, by the way.
And that was that.
Yeah, and so big kudos to Toyota for being understanding. We were hyper apologetic about it. Nobody wants to do that, and they know that. They were apologetic. Oh gosh, sorry that happened. All that kind of stuff. I was just bummed we couldn't film it because our audience likes that truck, and we actually like that truck quite a bit. It's not the best truck in the market, but it's top 3 every time. And it's one of those deals where I'm like, it's one of the better products. Now, all that Tundra-ness out of the way, I think this ride's a little better than the Tundra.
Oh, really?
Because the wheelbase is shorter.
Is it?
It feels like it is. It handles and parks like it is.
Okay.
It's easier to navigate parking lots and stuff. And I think there's something in this calibration and this package rides a little bit better on the road, at least, than the Tundra does.
And it could be because maybe it's not designed for as much payload. I don't know. We'd have to look at that. I don't know. It's not designed to do as many truck things.
Maybe it's weight and balance because there's more weight in the rear of this.
Could be probably as simple as that.
Yeah, it might be just that. But good package. Real happy with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. Let's move on to our next topic. Our next topic is we have some news a little bit out the last few days, or a lot of grumblings. You and I were told 5 years ago, Brian, that in the next 2 to 3 years, this was 5 years ago, in the next 2 to 3 years, at least 50% of the cars on the road will be EVs.
I think the stat, I was going through my memory the other day, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're talking about the same person. It was actually multiple people we're talking about from the EV community.
It was multiple people.
Charging community. The consensus was by 2025, 50% of the on-go car sales would be EV. And by the end of 2029 or 2030, closer to 90 adaptation.
Yeah.
And
I think the government thought that too.
Of course they did. It was evident in legislation. Hey, that's not the case so far.
No.
Sales last year, I think they were 22% EV.
If that.
Well, that's worldwide, I think.
Oh, okay.
I saw this on one of the sites the other day.
Yeah.
I think it was Jalopnik actually had an article on it. We'll have to look it up, but nonetheless, nowhere near that number.
No.
And look, Tesla stock dropped today
Mm-hmm.
by about $78 million in value.
So how's the price of their car?
And they have stayed competitive because they keep dropping the prices of their cars.
Like, really low.
Real low. And we're not going to get into the Tesla conspiracy stuff, but there's several owners that paid, $140,000 for a Tesla Plaid that's now worth $70 because it sells for $80.
Yeah.
So, they've gotten to the point where they're being reactive to the market better than other brands are. In fairness to them, like that's credit to Tesla. But Ford has said some things too. What is Farley's latest thing?
Yeah, so Farley's latest thing is he said a couple things. One, the comment you and I probably like the most and we're most excited about is they're tired of making boring cars.
Yes.
But that kind of dovetails right to the next thing, and that is we're basically really EV Lightning, F-150 Lightning production. Kind of, we don't have time to focus on that. We got to make other things that we need to make.
Right.
Is really what they're saying, and it's because they're not selling them.
No, they're not. Well, no, actually, they became the number one selling EV truck.
Sure.
Last year because they dropped the price back down.
Right.
Because they spiked the price during there was this whole inflation thing during COVID, and they weren't the only one. They're just being reactive to it. So they've done well in their market, but they're not capturing.
But the market hasn't done what they wanted it to.
That's where we're going with this. They were intending to sell 100,000 units a year, and they dropped that down to 48,000 units a year. And they again dropped that down to 24,000 units a year. That's where they are right now.
They're hitting a quarter of what they thought they were going to sell.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the industry-wide problem with EVs at this moment.
Right. That's a good temperature on the market.
And so what's happened is Ford is basically like, okay, quit focusing on making EV F-150s.
Right.
Let's make the things people want.
Right.
We're kind of back to what Farley's talking about. Give them what they want. Broncos, Mustangs, Rangers, F-150s.
And V8s.
And V8s.
He was actually quoted, this is the best interview. This is why I love Jim Farley so much. And yes, he is Chris Farley's cousin, if people are wondering. And if you look at him and on camera or you hear him in an interview, there's a resemblance.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
There's definitely a family resemblance.
Yeah, he's actually a really fascinating person. He's had a lot of interesting history. He used to be with Toyota and Lexus.
Mm-hmm.
He helped launch Lexus for Toyota back in the day. I mean, he's pretty happy with him as a CEO. In a recent interview, he was asked about EV, and he basically said the things you mentioned. We're not going that direction anymore. And then the next question was, how does it feel to be the last V8 pony car? He said, if we have to be the last person selling an affordable V8, we'll do that till the dawn of time. He is happy to do that forever. And look, the current Mustang is not aesthetically my favorite thing, but it is a competent package. It's a 500 horsepower in a V8. In a world of EVs getting headlines, let's not ignore the 500 horsepower V8. So, kudos.
Yeah, no, and that's, I guess, what we're kind of hammering, and one more news story that kind of came out this week, and then we'll really kind of wrap up our thoughts on these EVs. That is Toyota's leader that came out and had some comments and was basically quoted as saying, here's their expectation as we're starting to, car manufacturers starting to see what's happening better and what's really happening in the market. Their expectation, their prediction now is, which I think is realistic, and they've been resistant to EVs, but no, they've had to get in the game. They've been trying to. Basically, their expectation now is 30% of the market is what they see it settling into.
Right, and I think that's fair.
That seems right.
That seems accurate. And look, Toyota's usually pretty good at that stuff, and they hedge their bets early on that stuff. And look, they've been resistant because they've felt like that wasn't the actual answer, and we didn't either, by the way. Yeah. We talked to Toyota about this. They all seem to be on the same page. Hybrid is still probably the best overall option for most people.
Yes.
If you're really trying to make it a difference and get the most out of every droplet of fuel. Because EV is still not a total green energy. You're pulling from a gray network. You're dealing with a lot of, there's some coal's dropping off in our area, a ton of natural gas. There's a lot of natural gas plants around here. So that's where we're getting that plug in the walls where it's coming from. So I'm okay with all this. The flip side too is that it also gives me hope that the ICE engine that is as efficient as it has ever been is not for nothing. All those engineers for the last 100 years have been refining this and making it better, especially in the last 10 years. They've gotten so much better with direct injection and multiple cylinder displacement and all this stuff. It's not all for nothing. We're going to see that keep going. And one more headline, we can't leave GM out of this, Craig. Last week they announced they've invested $854 million into the next small block production.
Good. Slow clap.
Slow clap.
There.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That means LS, LT, whatever they're going to call the next one.
Sure.
They're reinvesting. And by the way,
QST.
It's going to keep going.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Whatever.
We don't know the alphabet. We'll figure it out. Anyways, I actually didn't tell Craig this. While we're on EV and GM, I think we need to drop this in here. You can cut it out if you don't like it later. I was in LA recently, last week, for a Mazda shoot, which we can't talk about until the future, but we'll get into that later, future podcast. But I was mixed with some professionals in the automotive industry out there, those that prep the cars, deliver the cars, and other journalists that attend launches and things like that. There's a big scuttlebutt going on about the Blazer EV. Is it the Blazer EV?
I don't know.
They're the one that Corey was all excited about.
I'm not sure.
It's a Blazer EV. It's a crossover EV that are on dealer lots before the launch happened.
Oh, wow.
Do you know why the launch didn't happen?
No.
All the cars broke. And they had to cancel people flying out last minute.
Ooh.
Nationwide.
Not good.
Not good. Now, I don't mind us telling the story because we weren't invited, so
That's
so
what they
be it.
get.
This is the rumor. It's what happens. But no one's talking about it because the launch has been rescheduled. It may not happen. And it's things like infotainment will just like blank off and the gauge will go out. And these are the guys that were delivering cars were telling me this. And so
hope I bet Honda's not so happy they married their little EV
with their
pony
Prologue.
to
yeah, we'll see how that goes. But anyways, that's interesting. And so the struggle with EV adaptation is not without its teething process.
Yes.
So, that's all I'm getting at. And look, GM's going to figure it out. It'll be fine. It just is another nail in the, this gas engine is really like fun and works. Let's not give up on it.
And it's all interesting news. We've got, so your news about your small block investment, the news about Ford saying, look, we got to make cars people want, and that's not EVs.
Yeah, exactly. If they're not selling, we're not doing this.
Toyota, who knows how to read markets and knows their business better than just about anyone, they're like, look, it's going to be 30%. That's what it'll settle into. That's your end goal.
And that's where they're going to invest and they're going to stop there.
And I think that's right, because that's what we've seen. And if you'd have told me 5 years ago, look, when EVs finally fully mature, probably about 30% of the cars on the road will be EVs. That makes sense. And it makes sense because not everybody lives in the city. Some people live in the country. Or some people live in the city have to drive far. Some people live in the country don't drive far. So it's
use case.
It's just use case. Yeah. You and I, an EV will not work.
No.
We know many people that live in the city that we're friends with that an EV absolutely will work. No problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. That should be an option.
Absolutely.
It works for them.
But by the way, this goes into modern politics. There's so much of it has to be this or this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case here. And no one's saying, I want my V8, which means you can't have your electric car, or vice versa.
Right.
Gearheads calm down too, right? Fire-breathing gearheads calm down too.
Yes, both need to calm down.
Exactly.
And 30% seems right, and everybody's happy.
And it's not the best use. And also, being in LA, it was a smog day. SoCal can be that way. And I looked around and went and said, an EV idling in this traffic makes so much sense.
Yes.
And you're in an area where solar and wind energy is more available than it is for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, put them here.
Yes.
And I'm fine with urban petroleum taxes, meaning you can't drive an ICE car into super congested areas without a tax associated with it. The UK has been doing that forever, congestion charge, what they call it. I'm okay with that, because in that environment, you need to get the smog out of that particular area. Do it. But,
all right, so direct all your complaints and opinions to breakcheckshow@gmail.com. Brian's the one you want to put those to.
Okay, great. Great.
Now you've gone political. You don't want to get political.
It's not political. It's pragmatic. And what I'm getting at is, you mentioned we couldn't have EVs. You could not have an EV without a ton of effort.
No.
And another car backed up. I couldn't be bothered because I just don't think they're fun to drive. And I'd rather drive something fun to work than boring to work. But if I needed to, I could, with a lot of adaptation.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's not as smooth as it really
and so that's where we'll land it at. We'll land it at, I guess, what is interesting to see, especially this week, these have all kind of come out back to back, these stories. What is confirmed is our suspicions we've had for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And what we've seen driving all these EVs, testing all EVs, trying to live with EVs day in, day out with the loaners we get.
Yeah.
It's just, the news that's come out this week makes sense. For those that are on the EV bandwagon, I'm sorry, it's where it's going to be. Those that are on the ICE bandwagon, hope you're happy, but also you're going to lose. There's not going to be as many.
Right.
And so it is still a big shift. 30% change of all the cars on the road being EVs is a massive industry shift that the manufacturers have had to react to, and they have reacted to.
Yeah.
And so I guess now I'll get political.
Okay, here we go. breakcheckshow@gmail.com. Point it to Craig. Here we go.
Yes, and just this is where the government had a misstep, at least in our country, for those that are listening here in the States. they got too aggressive and too overly excited about EVs were the only answer, period, to transportation. That just was wrong.
Well, and that was inorganic, right?
Yeah.
And the organic answer is 30% split. And I'm not saying we won't ever get to a heavier percentage. We might get to a 70 EV, 30 gas at some point, or internal combustion. But like long haul tow trucks being EVs or semis, that's a terrible idea.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Like that's where EVs are worse. It's sustained speed with a big hole in the wind. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. The reason there's no EV planes yet either.
Exactly. That'll never work. Now here's the flip they want to get back to. Part of the reason we're seeing these brands go, we put all our eggs in this EV basket, now we're in trouble. I'm talking to you, Stellantis. You killed your Hemis off because you had to. I understand. You played dirty for a long time and bought CAFE credits. You ran out of CAFE credits. You're not allowed to sell them anymore in this country. It's not really your fault. It's what it is. But the reality is they're leaning into an EV future that isn't necessarily there. So I'm worried about those kind of guys. But what I'm getting at is if you are still pro EV and you want one, you can get one, and you've got more options now than you've ever had before. But in terms of sales and volume, anybody that has wanted one now has one.
Yeah.
So now there's not this queue at the door with markups for dealers trying to buy these Ford Lightnings and whatever you want.
We can go to a dealer tomorrow and get an F-150 Lightning for cheaper than we can the gas version.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Which I'm saying, if you have a case where it works, look at it.
Absolutely.
Cool truck.
I still wouldn't mind it. If I didn't have such a long commute, it would be fun.
Well, if you had a usable 300 out of it, I think you'd go for it.
That's true.
You'd look hard at it.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways.
Okay, Ron, enough of that, though, because that's boring. So let's talk about something that it really is fun and doesn't have any EV option, and that is something we're looking forward to in 2024, the battle that's going to be so fun and so debated. You might be able to throw the Tacoma in there.
I was about to correct you in just a second.
But to me, the head-to-head matchup is the ZR2 versus the Colorado.
It's the midsize shootout.
Just the midsize shootout. The Colorado and the Ranger. That's what we're excited about. We're excited about domestically the Colorado and the Ranger.
Domestically, yes. Okay.
You like that?
What about Toyota North America, built in San Antonio?
Okay, so domestically the Colorado, the Ranger, and the Tacoma.
Okay, all right.
But yes, the Tacoma, you're right, probably should be thrown in there.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a TRD Pro committed off-road model, way more committed than ever has been.
Yes, I'm nervous about that though, because the Americans can't just be like, oh, this is a great trail rig with good suspension. Like, no, we need to jump it.
Yes.
We need to have turbos, and we need it to be fast and snarl. And Toyota's like, it's a hybrid. So I'm really curious to see how this goes down. Although they've marketed it as it being, like you said, more air than they've ever marketed before. So we'll see.
So what's prompted is recently went to the Houston Auto Show. You did the LA trip for Mazda. We split up our duties. I went to the Houston Auto Show.
Thank you for doing that. Good job.
And I saw the Colorado ZR2 AEV Bison Edition.
That's cool.
In the flesh.
That's cool.
And it's not going to look good on camera when you get to watch it. Sorry, viewers, because it's black.
Automakers. Don't ever send black cars in press fleets or to auto shows.
No, you can't see anything.
They disappear on camera.
Awesome to own. Like, I would almost like the black one to own, but just...
Well, it's at least, look at my Oakley white frame glasses.
Exactly.
Out of all of them because it blends in, but gray or black, right?
But Brian, seeing those 35-inch massive meats in person on an IFS,
on a
mid-sized truck,
yeah,
not a stick axle Gladiator or anything, no,
yeah,
unbelievable.
It
has presence. It looks free. We've had a ZR2 recently. We had a blast with it.
It was good.
We took it on a great course at.
We got air on that thing.
We got some air on that side. We had a lot of fun.
It was very happy doing it, by the way.
It was very happy, and that one's
built for it.
The AEV Bison just takes it up a notch.
That's so awesome.
It puts 35s on, Brian. Yeah. You still have the front and rear lockers like you do in the ZR2.
Okay.
You get even more tucked in boron steel bumpers, so that you have even more clearance and off-road clearance. So you can kind of do this with the 35s and the bumpers, and then all the skid plate protection they give you, the AEV gives you. You can do the slow rock crawly stuff like we like to do in the Ozarks, which is fun. But then it has jounce dampers in the front and rear for each. So, because look, they want you to jump this thing.
Yeah. And
so all the dirt roads I like to take at speed, like 70 miles per hour plus, it wants to do that. too.
It just won't care, will it?
No.
It just won't give a crap. You know, what's funny is, you remember Joel Feder, our fellow journalist who does all the web sites for cars and all kind of stuff. He broke a ZR2 on the launch and destroyed a drive shaft. And GM told him, "Don't worry, we've got another one in store for you." I think that's what they had in mind.
Yeah.
Help that.
So it's just what an awesome epic. It's one of those rigs that it can do everything. It can do the slow rock crawly stuff, and it can do the at speed. And And then you can also just drive it around town because it's IFS and be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's a compelling vehicle.
Okay.
We won't talk about the TRD Pro yet because we
haven't driven that one yet.
Haven't really driven that.
No one has.
No one really has, and so there's not a lot to talk about there. But Brian, same thing with the next vehicle we're going to talk about. But talk about the next one that we're also really excited about, the one with the Ford badge.
Oh, man. Look, my wife is excited about this. My kids are excited about this. If I went to church, my preacher would be excited about this. The Ranger Raptor. And part of the reason why, Craig, is we had the Bronco Raptor a year ago. And it, by the way, nice 35s. This one comes with 37s on the Bronco from the factory, which just kind of like laughs at full-on curbs. You hit them at speed, and they're just like, oh, you know?
Yeah, and we've said it 1,000 times. We'll say it again. The best off-road vehicle ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to take any factory vehicle ever made at any time to go run the King of the Hammers, that's the only one I would consider. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal. Shock travel, tire. Well, look, the Chevy's is in that neighborhood. It's 35s and jump stops and all this kind of stuff. Different formula, similar target, and probably similar goal and result. The Ranger Raptor is interesting that it only comes in 33s, which is what the ZR2 comes with as standard, not the Bison AEV one. Mm-hmm. That's going to be, I think the ZR2 Ranger Raptor, oh boy. I think the Ranger's already got it, based on V6 twin turbo, live valve versus the DSSVs, which we've driven both of those in different applications. The live valve just has a little more adaptability.
That's true too.
And it doesn't need jump stoppers because it can fully close the valves in the air. And it kind of has that built in.
But the Ranger Raptor cost about $6,000 more than the ZR2.
There you go. And so that's a very compelling argument.
But the Bison costs $60,000. That's the cheapest you can get it.
Okay, so the Ranger Raptor is 53?
55, 56.
Okay, so it's splitting the difference.
Kind of splitting the difference, yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. I wonder if they're going to have a Ranger Raptor R.
I know.
That has 35s on it.
Yes.
Or maybe just a 35 package.
Maybe.
That's probably what they'll do. Anyways, I'm curious about that because on Ergo alone, because we have sat in the new Ranger, I just fit a little better. And the new Colorado is actually a very compelling package. It's priced right. They had some teething stuff on the front end with, just being a new first-year vehicle. Those things are solved now. And they're selling very well. So I see them being successful. I just get along with the Ford's Ergo and the driver's seat a little better. And we've driven that Nano Base V6 before. It rips more than the GM 4-banger. But they're close in displacement.
They are.
So they're not competitive by any means.
Right.
So anyways, I'm curious, really curious.
It's going to be a great comparison. We cannot wait to get our hands on both those.
Yeah.
And yes, as it comes with TRD Pro, there's not a whole lot of new things to talk about there. We've already kind of talked about that before.
We'll talk in the spring. There'll be more in the spring.
There'll be more, and that'll be fun as well. And the whole hybrid application there is going to be very interesting.
Can we talk about that real quick? Because we've had complaints with the hybrid application in this rig we're sitting in right now before. The hybrid 3.4. They call it 3.5, but 3.4 liter V6 twin turbo paired with a hybrid. It hasn't been the best. And we've driven it from pre-pro to today and everything in between. We've driven 7 or 8 of these now. This is the best one. And I'm here to tell you, you talk about this all the time. Well, Toyota never really stops. They keep making it right. They've made it right. This is the most cohesive version of it.
Okay.
And it's better than the Power Boost we drove 2 years ago from Ford.
Interesting.
And in terms of calibration and all that.
So out of the 3, they all make good power.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Which one's going to be the fastest?
Ranger Raptor.
You think so?
33s are going to accelerate faster.
Okay, the TRD Pro I think has 33s and has 400 quote unquote 70-something pound-feet of torque.
If it's calibrated like the Tundra was in the first year, the Ranger has nothing to worry about.
But this is not the first year of them doing a hybrid in a truck. But first year in a Tacoma,
that's
so maybe.
True. No, good point. But the reality is, even with this one, because you have a battery readout and a turbo readout, they never go to 100% together.
Yeah.
Right. And I've got.
Toyota seems to always hold back a little bit in the vein of let's save it.
Well, let's make it last for 30 years without a question.
Right.
That's how that happens. Whereas Ford's like, we got a boost gauge.
Send it.
Let's use it.
You want to send it? Oh, send it.
Send it. Got it. No problem.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that the Ranger Raptor is going to, just like the TRD Pro has a lot of lineage and durability, the Raptor title in general is Ford for excellent. And so I've got a feeling that we're going to see some of that happening. In a straight line, I think the Ranger's got it.
It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so glad they have given us all these options. It's really interesting that the route Chevy's taken with the ZR2 and the Bison Edition. So you kind of have, normally previously the Bison Edition was just more protection.
Well, yeah.
Now the Bison Edition is bigger tires and more stuff for jumping. So thank you.
Look, for car guys, that's like going from a Shelby GT350 to a 500.
Yes.
It's like adding a supercharger to an off-road truck. The travel, the suspension, and the tire. That's more important than power for an off-road truck.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. It's huge. I can't wait to see. You saw it in person. Was it yesterday?
Yes.
So Craig was in Houston yesterday filming this, and you've been really giddy about it.
Yeah.
On paper, I haven't seen it in person, so I'm like, I don't know what he's on about. I might be feeling completely different the moment we drive it. So we'll see.
And look, you still have the Gladiator out there, the Rubicon and the Mojave or whatever, and it's fun too. It's going to be lots of fun things going on in the midsize segment. That's where our jam's at. We're excited because it's all coming out this year.
Well, and it's fresh, and we've always liked the segment anyways. And a few years ago, it was almost dead.
It was almost gone.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Like 2018, there wasn't a Ranger.
And no, when did the Gladiator come out?
It was 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had this. It was time of like the Gladiator was just coming out. The Ranger was gone,
but then Chevy was like, "We're not touching the Colorado." It'd been the same thing for a while.
Same thing, and the Tahoe was the same thing forever. So
right,
it was a stale segment there for a minute,
which also makes me think we're gonna blow our lunch money right now on new mid-sizes, and then in 10 years we'll talk about it again.
We may not have new mid-sizes for another 10 years. It's a once in a decade. This could be a once in a decade thing. I sure hope not, but it might be, and we're just really excited about it.
Yeah, competition's a good thing for everybody.
So anyways, a little bit of a preview for what we're looking forward to in 2024. Brian, that's all we have for tonight's episode. We've got more coming down the road. Stay tuned for episode 41. Thank you for joining us on episode 40. Anything else?
That's all I got.
See ya.